and it promises to be quite an interesting event. There will also be a Oaxacan food truck present as well. So it's going to be a fun-filled event. The next announcement relates to the USDA germplasm at Davis. So if you are not aware, there are a few different sites scattered across the country that belong to USDA where they grow certain plants, and it is possible to request scion wood from them for a small fee. Some places are responsive, some are not. I personally have had good luck ordering from Miami and Hawaii. I have not had good luck ordering from Davis. However, one of the CRFG contacts, John Valenzuela, is setting up a CRFG group order from Davis. And so you can go online. We'll send out the details later. We're working out the specific.
Colette, I may have muted you. I was trying to mute some of the other people here. But
how far did I get?
KH, I screwed up.
That's how far did I get?
Just like 30 seconds.
Oh, okay.
So for the last thing that we heard was that you were going to check to figure out what was the specific cultivar.
Yes, the specific order details, but we don't know yet how restricted it will be. The rules right now are that we may order specific cultivars, but they need to be somewhat rare. That means you can't just go to Home Depot or Laguna Hills Nursery or Ricardo's and find it easily. It needs to be a little bit rare. And I know that Laguna Hills and Ricardo's do have some rare items. So, but they can't be that easy to find. But if you're interested, feel free to go online to the USDA collection at Davis, and we'll send out the details later tonight in an email. Peruse, and then go ahead and email me, and I'll put my personal email in the chat. And then as we figure out the details as to how much we are restricted on, we'll go from there. The deadline is next Sunday for the chapter, but please send your ideas and interests to me this Sunday. And again, I'll put that information in the chat. And without further ado, I'd like to turn this over to
but the email will go out tomorrow, not tonight, Khaled.
Oh, so okay. The email with the details will go out tomorrow then. All right.
Okay, great. Well, this evening we are fortunate to have as our speaker Dr. Shengrui Yao. She's a professor and fruit specialist at New Mexico State University Alcalde Center. She did her undergraduate studies at China Agricultural University, receiving BS and MS degrees. Dr. Yao worked for 13 years at Shandong Institute of Pomology before she migrated to the US. She got her PhD degree in 2005 from Cornell University. She's worked with apples and small fruits at the University of Minnesota, North Central Research and Outreach Center for 3.5 years before joining New Mexico State University in 2010. She has worked with strawberries and blackberries, high tunnel fruit production, stone fruit production, and high density apple rootstock trials. Now her research is focused on jujubes. I just gotten interested in jujubes in 2021 when I heard Dr. Yao's presentation at the annual Fruit Grower Workshop put on by New Mexico State University. And when I took on the programming chair role last spring here, she's one of the first speakers I put on my short list. So Dr. Yao, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Jeff. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I'm gonna.
Okay, great. So I'll share my screen. Okay, I'm Shengrui Yao, a fruit specialist at New Mexico State University. Actually, I work at Alcalde Research Center, which is in northern New Mexico. So when you when we talk about the cultivar trial, you will mention that. Okay, today, it's my pleasure to have this opportunity to talk about jujubes to your group. Today, we just touch some of the jujube basics and my cultivar trial at 3 sites in New Mexico, which cover southern, central, and northern New Mexico. Jujube, also called the Chinese date, it belongs to the Rhamnaceae, the buckthorn family. The genus is the Ziziphus. All the cultivated cultivar belong to one species, Ziziphus jujuba male. In China, they reported around 800 cultivars. My estimate in the US, I think probably around 100. I have like around 60 collections. Some other growers maybe have some, there are a few like one in Kentucky, one in California have several ones. They have a pretty good collection. But the problem with the US cultivar, almost no one is formally released. It's just casually named, someone named after his name or some named after town. It's really not, formally named with a lot of details there. Also for the jujube, the cultivars, thousands of years ago, they all domesticated from their wild relatives, the wild jujube, Ziziphus spinosa. Farmers just, the wild one just really growing wild in the mountain area and northern China. Growers just, farmers just, carry out the good tasting, the bigger fruited one home and gradually become the cultivated species. They also have an Indian jujube. I think in the US, a really limited area. I think California is one of the fortunate area. I think Florida and partially probably in Texas can grow it. Unfortunately, we couldn't grow it in New Mexico. Any area with frost, you couldn't grow it. They normally probably started to bloom this time of the year and mature by February, March. They also can bloom, in the normal growing season, but probably the winter season is their dominant production season. For jujube, the edible part is a jupe. It's not really it's almost a stone fruit because they're not only the female part, they also have a little bit the honey disc also getting involved. That's why it's not really a pure stone fruit. They do all have pit with up to 2 seeds inside. But some cultivar do have no seeds. They do almost only 1 or 2 cultivar have the pitless have no pit, but almost all have pit, but not all have seeds. For jujube classification, they do have different tree shape, fruit size, fruit shape, different maturation date. And so far, it seems the jujube hybridization it's really difficult with its tiny fruit, also the later flower interference and also low fruit size. So in China, because they have been cultivated for several thousand years, so they have a large really gene pool there. So most cultivars just by selection, especially after the 1980s, scientists just, look around in the neighborhood, who have a better one, and then do some observation and then later name them. Majority of them just by selection. They started thinking, some others, but still very limited. For the classification, first you can buy fruit uses. We can have fresh eating, drying cultivars, multi-purpose, which means either both fresh eating or drying, or fresh eating and ornamental. Also processing cultivars and also ornamentals. Another way is by maturation date. You can have early cultivar, mid-season, late cultivar. More practical is combine the uses and maturation date. You can have early fresh eating, late drying cultivar, just to get these two combined. Jujube is really a multi-purpose plant. For the fruit, as we discussed, you can use it fresh, dry, use it in processing, or use it in cooking. You can also make a drink or wine out of it. Also, the jujube fruit, the dry fruit and the seeds are traditional Chinese herb for a long time. Especially the dry fruit, the seeds will improve your sleep pretty good. And the dry fruit is, there have a survey. It seems around 60% of the Chinese prescription have traditional Chinese medicine prescription have dry jujube there. Part of for its own, medicinal effects, and others is to detoxify some of the other, the toxicity from other herbs. Also, the jujube, the wood is very hard. We have in China, we have say, some people just stump as the, jujube stump there. It's really hard wood there. Also, jujube is quite common nectar plants. Jujube honey is quite popular in China. Here, the story is a little different because in China, I think it's the Asian honeybee, and here the honeybee is mainly the European honeybee. We did a jujube flower winter study with another entomologist. We never get it published yet, but we submitted the abstract a while ago. It seems, they have really different kind of visitors. We have over 30 species visitors, and honeybee is not that dominant in the US yet. And also there's some study of, the jujube nectar may be toxic with some potassium, something, but anyway, the jujube, the honeybee is not that dominant pollinator yet in the US. Maybe as acreage increase, they may change, but at the beginning, in China, probably they coexist, for thousands of years. They know each other. In the US, the jujube is a new species, the story a little different. For jujube, it's really have very wide adaptability, to soil and the weather conditions. For soil, they can be 5.5 to 8.5. So either acidic soil or alkaline, they all fine. Also, even the texture, either clay soil or sandy soil, they all grow pretty well. When I started at New Mexico State, the one interests me the most is the jujube's late season startup, because they live out much later than other fruit species. In New Mexico, the late frost is the #1 challenge for fruit production. For northern New Mexico growers, they do not know they have a crop or not each year until mid-May. So it's really #1 issue, So we have really limited power to, challenge the Mother Nature. So I'm thinking to get some alternative crop. The late season startup of jujube really interests me, because most time they just avoid the late frost. If some years they really, confront the late frost and the early growth, half-inch growth, they get killed. They can regenerate themselves and still, bloom, set fruit and mature. Jujube also heat and drought tolerant. It's to some extent. For the drought tolerant, for the young tree, you do have to water them well. When they, are mature enough, they're relatively drought tolerant. Also, jujube is very precocious. How precocious? You may notice even in the nursery, the grafting year in the nursery, they may produce some fruit. I mean, California, definitely you have more advantage. You have much longer growing season and a warmer climate. So if you top grafting tree, for the current year, you will see some crop, see some fruit. Because, jujube also produce quite a reliable crop, because they can initiate the flower buds in the same season. You know, for apples, somehow if frosted in the spring, then they do not have flower buds anymore. For jujube, as the new branchlet come out, they initiate flower as they grow. That's why their crop is quite reliable. Also, jujube have a really long-lived plants. They live a long time. They have very good tree shape, fruit shape, and the size. And in New Mexico, in general, unless the really cold area, it's hardy enough. I mean, in California, definitely no problem. And almost no insect and disease problem. This one is dynamics. As acreage increase, in the Lucerne Valley area, I think they started to have the peach mouse. The one damages the fruit. They get inside and then as they mature, they come out. In New Mexico, the disease and pest problem is not a big issue yet. For northern New Mexico, because we have relatively shorter growing season, so you have to try to avoid the late cultivars. Because the late frost doesn't bother them that much in spring, but the early frost terminates the growing season. That's why the late cultivar couldn't be grown in northern part. You can see how drought tolerant. This picture taken, I think, in 2012 at New Mexico Toucan Carry Center. I was told those trees are planted probably from 1920 something and abandoned in 1930s. So they're just in the dryland, just spread by themselves. You can see some of those trees are probably the original tree, a little older, and then they spread in half an acre. We have like probably 8 or 10 patch from several hundred to 1,000. They just naturally spread. They do not produce much because each year they are struggling. This year we'll do the genotyping. So I was there in June. In New Mexico this year really dry from April 1st to June 20th. So some of them just started to live out. It seems they're just waiting for the rain, but they do survive, by themselves for 90 or 100 years. You can see this, the word means the jujube king. I mean, this tree already over 1,000 years, 1,000, not 100. So you can see, the amazing thing, they're still producing. You see, this is a commercial orchard. From the trunk, you can see this is the scar of the girdling. They almost gird them every year, from the bottom up every year. If they get in the top and then back to from the bottom again. So they're girdling them every year. You can see, 50, 100 years old tree is quite common. Okay, the next part, we talk about the jujube shoot structure and the fruiting habit. For the shoot part, they have a primary shoot, secondary shoot or lateral shoot, fruiting spur, and the fruit bearing shoot, also called branchlet. This one, really, the little structure bearing the fruit. And let's see. So we have primary shoot, lateral shoot, mother bearing shoot. This is the fruiting spur. It's a compacted structure. Also the fruit bearing shoot. This is the branchlet. Have 3 kinds of buds: main bud, lateral buds, and the dormant buds. You see, this is a comparison of jujube and the apple. They all have terminal buds there. They all have leaves. They all have lateral buds. Lateral buds is on the, like for apple, it's easier. This is the lateral buds. For jujube, at each of the secondary shoot, there's a bud underneath it. Normally, they keep dormant. This is some of the lateral branches. For jujube, the primary shoot and the lateral shoot, they are different structure. If for apple, some years they have branches, especially in California. Apples, peaches, probably they branch out quite often. Their branch, the side branches have exactly the same structure as the primary shoot. But for jujube, the lateral shoot is different and also function different.
Do you want to learn about jujubes?
You see, this is
Jujube,
a primary
Jujube.
shoot. Can we, Jeff, can you mute some others?
Yeah, I've just done it.
Also, you can see this is the primary shoot. For Jujube, the lateral shoot or secondary shoot, they are just a part of the primary shoot. The secondary shoot or the primary shoots, they never exist by themselves. So this is the secondary shoot is part of the primary shoot. Also, the lateral shoot is also a permanent structure. As they're getting older, they do dead back, but they're really not a temporary structure. They do exist for several years or several 20 or 30 years. You can see this is the secondary or lateral shoot. Lateral shoot. You can see they do have a thorn at each node, and they have a bud. Actually, it's a group of buds, not one. The thorn, the straightforward one, and also a hooked one. The curved one. Actually, sometimes the curved one probably hurt you the worst. They can be really worse. You see in nursery, some cultivar can have like an inch long, thorn there. Probably they're getting really well growth, so the thorn also huge. You see, this is the fruiting spur. It's a compacted shoot, also called a mother bearing shoot. This one, the first year, they probably more like a bud or a group of buds. As they get getting older, they're getting bigger. You can see this picture. You see this is the fruiting spur. They're getting probably half an inch or inch long for some cultivars. You see this is what they look like in winter, more like the chicken foot, and also you can see this is close look. They can get half inch or inch long, more like a chicken foot, for some cultivars. The main buds on the fruiting spur, if it gets stimulated, they can change to a primary shoot. You can see this cultivar is so. Here is they have really zigzag curved set branches. So this is dominant location. You can see this bud transfer to a primary shoot. Also, you can see this is sugarcane. You can see this one. Almost every bud of the fruiting spur changed to a primary shoot. You can see this is Sihong. Sihong have more straight set branches. So the end is really a dominant location. So this one, you can see they changed to a primary shoot there. The branchlet. Why we do not call it a branch? Because it's a deciduous structure. It's a fall off at end of the season. This is the Arbor Valley. This one can hang for a while, so it's really pretty in the fall. This is during the growing season. This the branchlet. This is a real fruit-bearing structure. This is the growing season, what it look like, and this is at the end of the season they do fall off. So for the different kind of branches or shoot, like a primary shoot, this one forms the scaffold of the tree and responsible for expanding the fruiting area. The lateral shoot, this is the base of the fruiting structure, and it's a part of the primary shoot. Because for Jujube, these two almost always never separate actually. The lateral shoot is part of the primary shoot. The primary shoot is mainly the main thing, but the side branch is always there. They never exist separately, The fruiting spur, that's the mother bearing shoot. They just responsible for initiate the fruiting structure. They can transform to primary shoot if stimulated, as we saw it in the previous slide. The branchlet, this is the real fruit-bearing shoot. It's a fruiting structure. For Jujube pruning, we just only have this one slide. It's really minimum compared with the other fruit species. Also, Jujube do not respond as well as other tree species like apples or peach. For apples, if I have a branch, you cut it short, definitely 3 or 4, a shoot come out. For Jujube, you cut it, they may or may not respond. Jujube pruning is really minimum, but for young tree, they do need attention. Also, Jujube have something unique. For the heading cut, for apple, just one cut, they do have a lot come out. But for Jujube, if you want to keep growing, you need to give them 2 cuts. So for Jujube, if you just, because they have the lateral structure, branches there, so they're unique. They call it 1 cut stop, 2 cut sprout. We have some picture, to explain what it means, for the 1 cut stop, 2 cut sprout. It's really unique for Jujubes. Also for Jujubes, it seems the primary shoot, if it gets the secondary branch and change it to a primary shoot, that's more desired because their connection with the trunk is stronger. If someone directly from the trunk, for some cultivar, they have a better enough a branching angle. Some are too narrow, and then they may snap if you have a heavy crop later. Also, if you shorten the secondary shoot, you can stimulate primary shoot. But for Jujube, it's not 100% guaranteed. They may respond the current year. If you prune them, before they leaf out, they may respond the current year, or they may respond, second year, the year later. So they do not respond as well as apples and peach. For apple and peach, if you give them a heading cut, a lot of come out. But for Jujube, they're a little different. Also, you definitely remove the overcrowded, change, damage, or disease problem shoots there. Yeah, for California, your pruning probably a little different than New Mexico, because there you have much more growth than here. I remember I visited a couple, Jujube orchard in 2012 or 2013. I mean, they just, for the fresh Indian cultivar, they just rely on the 1 year shoot, current year's growth for, producing, which is work pretty well. But for New Mexico, they're too late. But for California, you have long enough season, it's worked pretty well. I do have a extension publication. Here's a link, the Jujube Training and Pruning Basics. It's a NMSU H337. You can download it for free. You can see, this is some of the tree where joined MSU in 2010. They never do any pruning. You can see, they have no branch, but already, this post probably around 6, already 12 feet, taller. So without any, branches, some fruit probably really hanging there tall, couldn't reach them. So that's why I started to do more research and do some pruning. You can see this is a set branch. If you shorten them, they can transform to a primary shoot. Actually, this kind of shoot branch is preferred because they have a really strong connection for this angle. For some of the, I think I have more. You can see this one is too narrow. This one is not preferred. If they have really heavy crop, they may break off here, Some of them, you can shorten them. They do come out, but not guaranteed the current year all come out. Some will probably respond the second year or the year after, but if you do intentionally do this for young tree, it do help to form the tree structure. Otherwise, some cultivar, they just all the way up without much branch there. Yeah, this is not desired. You can see some of them, they have really good connection with the trunk since they're from the set branches there. This slide illustrates what the 1 cut stop, 2 cut sprout mean. You can see, just assume this is a branch, a primary shoot in winter. Give a 1 cut here, cut it short, just give it 1 cut here. And then this is what it look like during growing season. They do have the branch leaf come out, they set fruit, but no shoot come out here. At least in New Mexico, they respond this way. You know, for California, if it's really vigorous tree, they may also can push it out. But in general, they respond this way. One cut, they stop for a year or longer, but the next year is not guaranteed. This bud may push it out. And you know, for the same branch, if you cut some wood or something, but you want them to keep growing, you need to do 2 cut. Cut the primary shoot out and also remove the first and also the second, you know, side branches here. So if we do this 1 cut here, another cut for the side branch, this would look like in the growing season, the new shoot come out. So if you want them to keep growing, you need to give them 2 cut. If you want them to stop growing and set fruit, give them 1 cut. So that is what the 1 cut stop and 2 cut sprout really mean. And really unique for Jujubes. You can see, you know, if you have a nursery, you know, us, you know, we just leave like a 1 or 2 node and remove the lower branches and, you know, cut the side branches short. But some of the big nursery, they probably planted them relatively close and easy for operation. They remove all the side branches. But, you know, for the customer side, leave some branches is easier to establish the structure because not all cultivars, if the offshoot come from the main trunk, is have the, you know, the wide enough branching angle. So after planting, you have a small plant, you know, with side branches, you try to remove the lower one. And also try to cut the side branches short to actually probably 1 node is good enough. Cut them to 1 node. And for the main trunk, the top of the main trunk, you do get a 2 cut. Then you have this bud keep growing. If it's just 1 cut, they just send some fruiting structure and produce fruit without growing. For, you know, young tree, you do want them to keep growing, you know, and also hopefully some structure come out of here. I have a good scaffold there. The next part is the Jujube flowering and fruiting habit. For Jujubes, they're different than like a common stone fruit and palm fruit. Their flower buds, they're bred in the spring. They do come out late, but their branchless growth, flower bud initiation, blooming, setting fruit, and fruit development all occur at the same time with the same branchlet. So for Jujube, the spring nutrient competition is really high, and that's why the Jujube, the fruit set is relatively low. They said commonly say 1%. I mean, no more than 5%, just a couple percent for Jujube fruit set. Also, the Jujube flower initiation, blooming, setting fruit, and fruit maturation all happen within 1 growing season. That's why they're not that affected by previous years, you know, nutrient or disease pest problem. So, you know, everything happened the same growing season, so they're less affected by last year's, you know, growing conditions, which is a good thing. So their fruit is more reliable. Also, another thing, you know, because they bloom for a long time. If you have experience with Jujube, I mean, California even probably longer. In New Mexico, I've noticed they bloom for 2 months or longer. So even the early flower, you know, somehow damaged, didn't set fruit, you still have the late flowers, and also they still can mature, especially in California. This is the diagram of the Jujube inflorescence. It's a sign, it's a definite inflorescence, which means the primary flower bloom first, and then the secondary, third, tertiary. In a real case, you know, you can see this is primary, this is the largest, this is secondary, and third level, fourth level. If this one set fruit, some of the later one, they may getting aborted, you know. For this is a really huge cluster. Normally, probably from 3 to 7, 8 little flower bud in one cluster is common. This is a huge one, probably have 13 something or more flower buds. For the flower bud initiation, you can see this is a branchlet. As it grow after a week, 10 days or 2 weeks, you see this little knob there. This is the flower buds. So they do not initiate a year before. As they grow, they initiate flower buds there. And this is the flower bud blooming process. For each Jujube flower bud, they only bloom 24 hours, no more than 48. So they just bloom one day, but the whole tree, they can bloom for 2 months. This is the hourly process. You can see this is their nectar disc. And some, you can see this period, they have really, the shiny part, they have really a lot of honey there. That's why they attract the insect. For each little flower, you can see this triangle thing, that is the staple. The little spoon thing is this is their petal. They're nothing showy, and the total diameter is around a 1/4 inch, from 5 to 7 millimeter. So they're around a 1/4 inch. At the beginning, the petal holds the anther, and later they separate. And even the center part, this is the female part. If some section, you may see I have 2 there. And then that's why they can, you can see here, the more clear. I mean, they can have 2 seeds, each one develop into a seed. Or they can have up to 2 seeds, 1 seed or no seeds, all possible. This is another cultivar. They have 2 kinds. One called a morning blooming type. They start blooming like 5 or 6 in the morning. And the other one, they start bloom around noon time. We call it afternoon time. This is also same thing, hourly process, Yeah, we do this one do make a cover for the horse science in 2015. We also studied there how many cultivar are really self-fruitful, It seems the common cultivar Li 2, Redland, Daguazao are cultivar number 1. Anyway, a couple of them do set fruit by themselves, but the land is not. So also we noticed even they can set fruit, cross-pollination always increase not only the fruit size, but also the fruit size, which means produce more fruit and bigger. So that's why in general, even for the self-fruitful cultivar, we also recommend, growers plant 2 cultivars to increase the cross-pollination, increase fruit size and the fruit size. For the fruit size, depending on the cultivar, you can see some cultivar, the one branch, they have like a 3-5 hanging there. Some of them, have empty branchlet. So it really depends on cultivar, also weather conditions. If it's too hot or too humid, all, affect the fruit size. Also the cross-pollination, if I have 2 cultivars cross-pollinate each other, can increase the fruit size. Also, because Jujube is an insect pollinated flower, so they do need insect activity. It's not only honeybee, but a lot of wild bee, even ants, also ladybugs. It seems ladybugs also carry a lot of the pollen. Sometimes you even see that called tiger wasp, something huge, but some of the one with really, big like something, they didn't carry that much pollen. The little one with the hairy legs, they carry more pollen and pollinate the Jujube flower better. Also, if your tree have a lot of vegetation growth, also increase, reduce the fruit size because of the nutrient competition. In China, they have use a lot of cultural practice like a girdling or gibberellin spray to increase the fruit size. I mean, for us, like for my even later part of the talk about cultivar trial, we haven't put much, cultural measurements there yet. We see the natural condition first, and then probably later, we can try some cultural measurement there. We started imported in the sandwood importation in spring of 2011. So after the USDA quarantine period, and we started to propagate them, and also some of the fruiting flowering habit study. And in 2015, we finally propagated enough. So we established the cultivar trial, each one with 35 to 40 cultivars at Alcalde and Las Lunas. Each cultivar have like 3 or 4 trees there with replication. And in 2017, I finally figured out how they manage it at Landacre. This one near campus, because I'm here too far from campus, finally figured out, actually, it's my dream to have one site at the southern part. For northern part here, the USDA hardiness zone 6A, and the central part around 7A, and the Las Lunas, Landacre, Las Cruces around 8. So I can cover several zones there, so give growers more choice, This is their weather conditions. For Alcalde, the annual temperature is around 51, and the annual precipitation around like less than 10 inch. And the central part definitely warmer is 55 degree, and the southern part is 61, 62 degree. So they just cover 3 zones there. So it seems the 50 degree Fahrenheit and the 10 degree Celsius is a magic number. It seems the annual temperature have to be higher than that. If lower than that, you have more trouble because the shorter growing season, your fruit may or may not fully mature there. So for each site, we have like 35 or 40 cultivars. So we just report them according to fresh eating and dry cultivar, separate them. So this is some of the cultivars for the fresh eating. You see we have around 17 here. So this is the 3 locations: Alcalde, Landacre, AL's Alcalde, LL's Las Lunas, and LK is Landacre, which means also Las Cruces. This is actually the main part is still the early performance. You can see around this is they were planted in 2015. You can see by 2018 it's a 4th year. So the average around like 3 to 10 kilo per tree. Yeah, you can see this KFC. This is called the Kungfu tree. This is the one I imported directly from China. I mean, they're already quite productive. Now, I have a brief update about the 2020, this is the 2022, yield data. So, I mean, even the 4th year, this is New Mexico data. If it's in California, I think probably at least double. So Jujube is not a slow growing and a very productive tree there. You can see this is the fruit size, from different locations. The general impression is, fruit from central and the southern part are bigger and larger than Alcalde. You can see this is the couple, fruit with large fruit. Alcalde #1, Daguazzo, Lee, and the Redland. They have like over 20 gram of fruit. And some of the small one, you can see Maya, Gaga, and Honey Jar, and also they call it, I call it Russian 2. I didn't list it here probably. That one I do not have enough replicate. Some nursery also call it Black Sea. That one also small fruit, but really excellent fruit quality. But small fruit, just 6 or 7 grams, but really good for home gardener. You can see this is according to Las Lunas, the 4th year. You can see the Kung Fu tree already have like a 10 kilo average per tree. Actually, that cultivar is a little unique. They do not send out a lot of primary shoot. So the tree is some kind of not that crowded as a sugarcane. Sugarcane send out a lot of set branches, really crowded tree. KFC have really sparse branches, but they're productive. They can have the fruiting spur can fruit for a long time. Yes, you can see this is a different cultivar there. This one is really less productive. The Sandia, it's a winter Jujube like or called Dongzao, but this one has a super fresh eating quality and not very productive for, not very precautious. And for California, maybe a different story. For New Mexico, the early crop is really limited. You can see this is the county number 1, also called Qie. This is Chico. This is Da Bailing. This is Da Guazao. This is Gaga. This is Maya. These two quite similar. It's a little different, but not that. If you mix them together, hard to separate them. This is little honey jar. This is a Russian 2. This is 3 or 4. It's really small fruit, very suitable for home gardener because they're really excellent fresh eating cultivar. This is KFC, is a very shiny fruit, much bigger than the honey jar or Maya. This is a popular cultivar Lee. This is a Redland. This is a Sandia or winter Jujube or called Dongzao. So for fresh eating cultivar, Sandia and Dongzao has the best fresh eating quality. They're sweet, crunchy, very fine texture, thin skin, really tastes good for fresh eating. For honey jar, Maya, and Russian 2, these 3 or 4 have excellent fruit quality, precautious and productive, but the limitation is a small fruit. So if you're thinking commercial production, probably try to avoid this cultivar because the picking is a big issue. The Lee and the Lee Shanxi Lee, that one can have like 25 or up, size. In this little thing, only 7 grams, only a quarter of their size. So the pick is, the large fruit is much easier to pick. This one almost always, not really mixed with leaves, but you couldn't, if you pick one by one, too slow. If you grab them, then you grab a lot of leaves. The large fruit is much easier to pick. Like the Kung Fu Cui, Li Shanxi Li, this is the big fruited one. The Kung Fu Cui is not as big as others. This is more like a medium size, but this is really productive cultivar. And the Kung Fu Cui, the quality is better than the Li group. The others, Li Shanxi Li, this group are called the Li group because all the big fruited one. The Kung Fu Cui is a little more medium size, but very productive. Also a much better quality than the Li group. Color number 1, this is also, this one is not very precautious. When I first imported it, it seems not too bad. Some trees, it cropped reasonably, but in the cultivar trial, this cultivar have a little more compacted tree than others and not that productive. At least, without cultural practice, it's not that productive. But it's really early. This is almost the earliest in my collection. So it's really suitable for the mountain region. like the area 6A, even probably 5B. If they want to try some jujube, this is probably the first choice. Because at Alcalde, most years they mature around mid-September or so. If it's really special year, everything delayed, this one also delayed. Okay, the next part we talk about the dry and multi-purpose cultivars. So this one probably also 50 or a little more. This is the tree site, which one have which one, Alcalde and the Las Lunas. And only this little thing probably only included at Las Cruces Land Acre area. Yeah, this is the tree. You can see now this is after third year I measure their growth. You can see on average they are already close to 3 meters, which means they're really not that slow growing. I can imagine probably 2 years and California can reach this height. Also, you can see this some cultivars are more upright, some cultivars are more, bushy. And also, you can see the branches is really different. Some of them cultivar really upright without much, let's see, without much branch, and some of them so upright. I call it, upright and bushy, more upright, more bushy. But the small number is more upright, and higher number more bushy. Like I probably include the sugarcane is more bushy type. This is the yield data. You can see this is a Hongfu Cui KFC. You can see this is the Alcalde. I mean, even in northern part, they produce a lot of fruit. This is the year 3, 4, and 5. You can see they already over 12 kilo. And in Las Lunas also very productive. Some cultivars, they are, productive from, northern part to southern part, all productive. Some cultivars, perform better in southern part. In China, they have a theory, probably cultivars, some cultivar, they probably not that sensitive to the temperature during fruit set time. Some of the more sensitive, they require higher temperature, so they are better in southern part. Some of them, not that sensitive, so they are good for northern part, central, and also southern part. You can see the Jinghui Wang is also Xiang. These two, perform really well in southern part, but not that good in northern part. Also, the Xiang is relatively late, so it's understandable, no good in northern part. But some cultivar, you can see they're all good from south to north, Yeah, this is a crowded table. Let's see. You can see, probably pay more attention to the bottom part. The general impression, especially for 2019 data, the fruit from southern part are much bigger and wider in size and also heavier. And also this is a soluble solid. They have a bigger fruit. They have a more sugar content than the northern part. This is a general impression. We have a lot of data, but they're too complicated. Let's check the average on the bottom. This you can see you have a general impression, for their fruit performance from northern part to southern part. For northern part, for Alcalde, in some good years, like in 2015-14, normally we have hard frost around October 10th, but some year, they're really light, the early frost, and then they can, survive for another 3 weeks. You can see this one, this is sugarcane in 2015. I got really good drying fruit at Alcalde. But, in 2019, it's really short growing season, the frost on September 23rd, the first frost. So that year, the fruit is no way to dry them. It's really skinny, not much. but you can see in some good years. I mean, so that's why the northern part is really not that reliable. It depends on Mother Nature. If Mother Nature give you a longer season and later, early frost, then you have a better fruit. I mean, most years, the southern part of central is more reliable. Because I located in northern part, so in some 2014, the good year, you can see I dried quite a bunch of cultivar. Even they are a little yellowish, not a really rich color, but you can see they're meaty enough. But most years they're that good. But in southern part, they're more, you can see the color much darker. They're more fully developed. For northern part, they're more forced to mature, around end of September, early October, the daylight temperature is really huge. They're just frosted. I mean, they are forced to mature. Some years they are, sweet enough, but a lot of years they are just skinny. Also, you can see generally the color is more yellowish. The northern parts, the fruit is really rich color there. So for drying and multi-purpose cultivar, it seems Jinsi number 2, 4, and the Pitlis and the Huizao, these 4 cultivar have relatively small tree, especially Jinsi 2 and the Huizao, they're really small. Pitlis and Jinsi 4 more like moderate. Sihong and the Jingkui Wang have really much larger tree than others. Sihong, it seems to have really good drying quality, also good for fresh eating. The problem is, without cultural practice, that one never set very heavy for us. Jingkui Wang set fruit pretty well. It's a little late for northern part, but for southern and central New Mexico, pretty good. For California, definitely no problem at all. Yeah, in general, southern part have larger fruit and a sweeter fruit and better drying quality. The Jinsi series, Sihong and the Jixin have really excellent drying quality. Xiang is productive. It's drying only cultivar, which means if you taste it fresh, more like a cupboard. Not many people really like it. It's very productive in southern part. It's a late cultivar. But the quality is not that super. It's really dark color, nice looking fruit. But the drying quality, it's not that tasty as the Jinsi or the Sihong or Jixin. KFC and the Sherwood, this one more like both good for both fresh eating and drying. So it depends on what's your usage for the fruit. So you can select the cultivars accordingly. In 2019, it's really extreme weather and for New Mexico. Normally, a county we have around 150 days, frost-free days. That year we only have 122 days, almost a 4 weeks shorter than normal. So a lot of fruit just dried up, fruit and leaves just dried up. Even central New Mexico also get affected. So the southern, the Las Cruces side is not affected, but the central and the northern part are really dried up. You can see the fruit all like this, so they just frosted on the tree. We didn't have harvest much because the fruit, once it's frosted there, they do not mature further. They just fall off later. You can see something like this, they do not accumulate further sugar. Even the central New Mexico also get affected. Yeah, this is a picture of the Jixin. This is really shiny fruit. It's really, the drying quality is really good. Yeah, this is I haven't get a name for it yet. This is almost the latest cultivar, fresh eating cultivar in my collection. They're really productive. This year together with another cultivar, their 6th season, they produce around around 100 pounds per tree. This one, not the quality, not like the regular Sandia or Dongda or Winter Jujube. It's kind of a late cultivar. In China, also called a dongzao, you know, because it's a late. Probably people talk about, occasionally they say the mango dongzao, you know, probably like this one. For me, it's a mislabeled one for my importation, but it turned out I think it's quite similar to the mango dongzao. Some people talk about it, have that name, you know. This is a real dongzao. It's more like a little, yeah, my daughter like it, more like a mini apple. It's really crispy, you know, it's a medium size. It's really, to me, it has the best fresh eating quality. For this year, you know, you can see, you know, many include the early performance. The later one, probably either next year or year after, I get summarized, getting published. You can see for Landaker, the tree are really catching up. At the beginning, they were planted 2 years later. They were planted in 2017. So this is their 6th season. A 6 leaf, you know, probably a more professionally called 6 leaf. They have an average of all the cultivars, you know, have around 40 pounds per tree. I think if in California, they're probably much higher than that. The highest one around 100. We have 2 or 3 trees produce 100 pounds per tree. Their yield similar to the 8th leaf, you know, the 8th year for Las Lunas, equivalent yield. Actually, this year, Alcalde, we have the early yield for Alcalde, not bad. Actually, this year, we have some, you know, personnel change issue, you know, they wasn't watered that well because we have a drought. We have no rain for 80 days from April 1st to June 20th. Yeah, you can see some of the tree, what the tree look like. Also, you know, I probably try to say first, this is the ornamental cultivar, so I didn't pick the fruit, you know. And also you can see this is a really all-season landscape tree, or called edible, you know, edible landscape. You know, they produce actually a lot of fruit. You can see a lot because we didn't pick them. When I took the picture, a lot of already on the ground. They're a heavy producer. You know, they are reasonable to eat fresh, also okay for drying. You can see the tree really beautiful, you know, ornamental, you know, year round. Yeah, these some pictures. This is a color number 1. This is a gaga. This is the Dao Cui Wang. This is sugarcane. This is a Chaoyang. This is a pickle. Chico. Sorry, not pickle. Chico. It's more like a mini donut like. This is a 2 Li, Shanxi Li. This is a Kung Fu Cui. This is the Len. This is a Jinkui Wang. This is a Jinsi Cui. These 2 are relatively bigger than this is Jinsi 4 is much smaller than Jinsi 3 and Jinkui Wang. This is Jixin. You know, Jixin means chicken heart in China. So probably a little mimic is the fruit shape. This is a Sherwood, I think. This is Xiang. It's really beautiful fruit with really thick skin, but the dry quality is okay, but it's not that super. This is GA866, they 2 the same. This is that really productive late cultivar. These 2 are the winter Jujube, really the best fresh eating one. Okay, in summary, the average annual temperature 50 or 10 degrees Celsius, this is the threshold. I mean, it's, for California, I don't think, you know, you need it. But for other marginal region, you have to think about your, you know, climate condition there. If you less than 50, you have to be careful with the cultivar selection. For the Jujube growing, you know, the USDA hydrogen zone is not that helpful. In general, they grow really well in the Southwest, you know, definitely including California, New Mexico, Arizona, and California, because Jujube prefer the full sun and also the hot summer. If the just the USD zone, for East Coast, Northeast, they also have zone 6, but they have cloudy weather, not that hot enough. Tree may be able to survive, but the fruit quality is really limited, and they have also more disease problem. For us, sometimes the fruit can hang on the tree for a while. For them, they have to pick them right away when they mature. Otherwise, they get, molded or split and have the yeast infection. They just totally ruined. In New Mexico, it seems Hispaniola or County area is the marginal region. The annual average temperature around 50 or 51. They can grow early to mid-season fresh eating cultivar. Late cultivar doesn't work well this area. Also not for commercial growers. Because for commercial grower, you don't want your fruit only just 1 week, before the frost. That's not good. Also the Mother Nature not guaranteed, always, October 10th. They may give you a shock September 23rd, that happens quite often. So for home gardener, no problem. You can even try a little later one. It's possible, but for commercial grower, definitely only fresh eating cultivar. Drying cultivar is the quality limited. In southern part, you almost can grow all the fresh eating and drying. From early to late, they all grown pretty well. Central New Mexico, something in the middle, unless really late drying cultivar, others are doing pretty well. Here's some reference, at least quite a bunch. This one more like a one-stop shopping, for you. Actually, I probably can, let's see. They're all here. Let me show you. You can see at least some reference. If you go to this website, they all listed there. I'll open it. Called NMSU Jujube. Can you still see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, you can see here. This is the Jujube NMSU Jujube website. Here, they listed the cultivars, the drying, fresh eating, something all here. If you want to check some cultivars, you can just open each cultivar and click the pictures. So there are also an icon called resources here. This one actually a similar talk, today's one with more updated information, but this one have most of the basic information covered. And also, let's see. Wait a minute, I'm a little lost. Here. Also, you can see this is a grafting video if you have interest. And here, all the extension publication here, all the peer-reviewed publication here. So the one listed on the last slide, all here. So if you search NMSU Jujube, all pop up. And then under the resources part, they have all the publication listed here. I just wish, I have more, I have work out with, nurseries, and then I also supply plants. Then the more like a full one-stop shop. Now we're short of the plants. Okay, that's pretty much the end of my presentation.
Well, terrific. I think we have some questions in the chat. John McNeil, will you want to go ahead and unmute yourself? You seem like you had a few things to ask Shengrui.
Okay, so
John, you're still muted.
Yeah, let me get back. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it, Michelle. It was a wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. We have a lead Jujube growing in a pot, and it's a very big pot. It's probably about 30 or 40 gallon pot. And we had this year some very, very large jujubes. My wife dries them. She uses them in a Chinese tea with longan for health benefits. And I was wondering if I can increase the crop by grafting a Sherwin or something like that onto my leaf.
So I apologize, I'm a little lost. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I just wonder if I can graft a Sherwin variety onto my Lee jujube to increase the crop.
In China, the gibberellin spray is quite common. If you do not want to spray any chemicals, you can do the girdling.
Okay.
So girdling, you just probably do, several millimeter. They have some special tools. You just around the trunk. Don't do it to too young tree. You have to be, big enough, several years old at least.
Okay.
That's why you can see there's a slide. They gird in China. They gird it. There's a common practice. Gird it every year. They just from the bottom, several inch up every year to the top, and then they come to the bottom again every year. They gird it every year. When they are during full bloom, you can gird them. And then they concentrate the nutrient to the above ground part to stimulate the fruit set.
Okay, so it's restricting the flow of hormones to the flowers, or to the what's the girdling actually doing?
Because you just remove the bark around the trunk or the big branches, just a thin slide. Make sure to cover it. Don't get infected with insect.
Right.
And then after 2 or 3 weeks they will heal. And at that time, the fully blooming time, the leaf, the manufactured nutrients, the carbohydrate, they because they block the carbohydrate transportation, they concentrated on the above ground part. That's why increase the fruit size.
Okay.
Not permanently, because later they just healed each other. They also they couldn't, if permanently, then your tree get killed. So just block it for a couple of weeks, and then they concentrated and increase the fruit size.
Okay, so you have to go deeper than the cambium layer.
Yeah. You just remove the bark, because the growing season they're slippery. You just remove a thin layer all around the trunk. And then try to get it covered with a plastic or something, and then don't get other animals or insect, eats the
Probably wrap it with grafting tape.
Pardon?
You could wrap it with grafting tape, budding tape. Just use budding tape around, the plastic.
Yeah, it's just around the trunk or the big branches. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't cut it too wide, just a thin layer. Or you can search some literature, don't cut it too wide.
Okay.
Yeah.
So John was mentioning also he wanted to graft a second variety onto his tree. So you were mentioning cross-pollination improves fruit set and size. So how well do they take to multi-grafting?
They're pretty good.
Yeah, so that's not a problem. You can graft a bunch
Yeah,
of
I also have a little, grafting video there. Actually, that's why I have a lot, 70,000 something click already. It's several years. I made it in 2013, because when we did it the first time, no experience, our journalist, she didn't tell me what to say, what not to say, use my sound or not. So I just say whatever I say, Later, in general, it's okay. So we just put a little title there. So didn't really change the sound,
Well, I did watch the video and I thought it was very informative, and there was no problems, I thought, with the quality. So
yeah, but the first time to do that, she didn't tell me, You can see it's just my little nursery. I just sit there, do whatever.
Well, when you do put a second variety onto an established tree, do you graft it onto, does it need to be grafted to a primary branch or to a secondary branch?
Don't graft in a secondary branch. You just, especially in California, you should have some, bigger, the big scaffold structure grafted there. If you grafted the second one, they may take, that one later, because the second branch, they later just die back. It's hard for them to really grow out as a primary shoot. So you just, let me see how I can do a drawing or something. Let me see.
And would you recommend a cleft graft or a veneer graft?
What's it called? Photo, not photo. It should be called a drawing, yeah.
Well, while you're looking for that, I want to say I did put the link to today's presentation. It's up on our Google Drive, so you can download that and have all the links that she was showing you at various times.
Because I think you should get the scaffold branches. You don't graft to the side branches because you want the cross-pollination cultivar also grow to a reasonable size. For me, never grown to graft them to the second branch. Always the primary shoot or the big trunk. Even you sacrifice a branch like this, also good enough. Don't grow to the too thin, branches. They do not grow. They produce a couple fruit. That's it.
Well, your video showed cleft grafting. Do you do other types of grafting? John mentioned veneer. What about budding?
The budding, recently people told me they do it. In the fall you can do that. When they're mature enough, you use buds from the side branches, from the lateral branches, because that one do not have the, the buds only. Because the deciduous branchlets doesn't bother. The main primary shoot doesn't work because they have the side branch. You couldn't get buds out. Use the buds from the side branches.
Okay. John, did you have anything else you wanted to ask?
Yeah, I was just typing up something about fertilizing. What fertilizing is required, foliar or organic around the drip line? What is the preference for fertilizing and what type?
I don't think Jujube is that picky. For home gardener, if you have like a compost manure, I think they all work pretty well. You can do a soil analysis, but in general, we did around for our 7-8 years tree, probably around 100 pounds of nitrogen, 50 or 60 P and 50 60 potassium. For whole gardener, you just feed them every year. They should be fine. They're quite easy to take care of,
Yeah.
I mean, also depends on soil. If it's really good soil, you just feed them a little bit, they should be fine. If it's really sandy soil, probably feed them a little more.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, in California, they should grow, to tell truth, they should grow a lot. You can see the Las Cruces site. I mean, 6 years, they already have an average of 40, 50 pounds. I mean, for you guys, probably already 60 or 70 pounds probably already.
So how about the new cultivars, well, new to us that you brought in from China, and I see a lot of them trademarked here in the U.S. They're all listed on your varieties page. Are those going to be available to us, or
they're available. If you need a, I wish you guys can try to bug the big nursery and work with them. For me, I only have one part-time technician. We couldn't handle sending this thing to all the individual growers or home gardeners. I wish we can work with like Dave Wilson or something. They like to work with us. We give them some, they propagate, they, you know, they can supply to the customers. For us, you know, we just give you $3, give him, you know, $10, you know, couldn't solve the big problem. They're still not that available, you know. So you know, I tried to reach with 1 or 2 big nursery. I mean, now it's a you know it's a seller's market. They only propagate leads, they can sell them all. So for them, they have no big intention to really, you know, carry a lot of cultivars. I know the growers, you definitely want, you know, some better one. So you guys all ask the, you know, to request for the nursery, bug them. I mean, let them to work with me, you know. They just, you know, out that year, you know, definitely 2019, you know, I even sent some fruit to Del Wilson. They told me, you know, that year definitely not a good year, as I mentioned in the slide. That year, you know, because the early frost is too early, so you know our fruit didn't mature that well. I mean, they are so picky. It says this is not good, that's no good. You know, so you know they have no intention to work with me. So I said, you know, then I have to wait until, you know, you guys have interest. Then it's probably easier.
Are there any nurseries local to you that are carrying some of those varieties now? In New Mexico, are there any smaller nurseries that are carrying some of your newer varieties?
My husband have a tiny nursery. I do not have big nursery yet, you know, because for him more like a hobby nursery. I mean, a lot of people are asking for cultivar, and now he already is all pre-ordered, so nothing left, you know, for this year. Also, for us, you know, it's hard for us to expand because we do not have a property, and then, you know, we used to rent, and then they want to switch, you know, to maybe sell the property or something. So it's and for us, we couldn't afford to buy, you know, equipment. Then it's all manual labor. Then it kill us. So we were thinking to quit.
So you meant,
I saw. Let's probably go through some of the questions. Let's see.
yeah. So besides,
For the sucker problem, I do not know. It seems all sucker.
Yeah.
You know, you can use sucker and then graft. But the best graft wood is seed and diamond pattern.
so there aren't any varieties that don't sucker heavily like the ones I've seen. I know.
I don't think I didn't know any didn't sucker, so I have no good recommendation. So most time commercially shouldn't be a problem. I mean, for people's yard, if you really, they do send out suckers, so you can mow them. But if you really hate suckers, you have to be careful. Put a location, do not bother that much, you know.
Derek asked, he said he did the 2 cuts sprout this past winter, but no primary shoot came out. Should he be worried, or should he just wait till next spring?
I did a 2 cut sprout and pattern, no problem. You know, if you cut it, you know, it's definitely also related to your management. If you trade, you know, strong enough, they should, you know, response. But if you trade really weak or really stressed, it's also no surprise if it didn't grow, you know. They may respond this year. I mean, I have a local grower. He bought several hundred plants. He planted in a virgin land, and you know, and later he got a little water tank to water them. So he never fertilized them. You know, really limited water supply. So his tree almost no new growth for several years. You know, I told that guy called Justin, I said you need to feed them much better. Otherwise, you know, you couldn't blame the tree. You know, it's blame you. You didn't feed them. You know, I mean, Jujube is tough baby, you know, tough plants, but when they're a baby, they're still a baby. You know, they need to survive the baby stage. You know, to a reasonable size, they're tough. But I mean, at the beginning, they get killed, so they have no way to no future. You know.
Well, when you do that type of cut and you want it to resprout, can you do that in the dormant season, or should you do that when it's growing?
The dormant season.
Okay.
When you do the winter pruning, if you that is the main trunk, or that is the what you want to use, have expand further, do a 2-cut.
Okay, but so in the winter.
Yeah, but if it's hanging branches, that's a different story. It should have to be an upright growing habit. If that branch is hanging, then that's respond differently.
Okay. Well, Colette apparently has done some side grafting with it. And he says she's not kidding when she says the wood is hard. It was like working with stone. Colette, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, it's actually before I knew any better. And I got the sugarcane variety from our sign exchange, and I had no rootstock. So I bought a bare root tree. And I actually bench grafted it, and it was really hard. It was like whittling, and it was really hard to get clean cuts. I had maybe a 2-inch connection of 3 separate side grafts, and after grafting it, I just planted the bare root tree, and it took something like 4 months for it to leaf out. It leafed out, it grew all summer, and then in September, October, when the leaves they dried out, and then I thought it died. So I yanked the tree. I thought the whole tree died. I didn't know. I didn't know any better. But the side graft did work, but it was very hard to do. And I figured that's why I said there must be an easier way. But it's I think what you said about grafting onto the secondary and the laterals makes sense, because if those die back, then we'd lose the graft after the summer.
For yours, because it's a bare root, so they have no, not established yet. California are probably better. For here, most time, even I transplant the sucker, I let them grow a year and then do the grafting. When they established, I do the grafting. Also, if you put it into a set branch, they can heal, they barely grow. You have to put in the main trunk.
Yeah, that's what I did. I had grafted, when I bought the bare root, it was just a whip with a few small laterals. So I grafted onto the main trunk. The scion was about as thick as my thumb. So yeah, I had grafted onto the main trunk. That's why I was trying to see if there was something easier, just because the wood was so hard. Or do you graft fresh wood, like fresh wood in the summer onto the main trunk? Is it softer?
Most time we use the winter one, because you graft in the spring, you just collect the same wood before they leaf out. Right. So they do quite hard. So they do need some practice, and also have a really sharp knife.
Yeah. That I can attest to.
Yeah. Also, you need some practice. You have to graft them fast enough. If if you get 1-2 minutes, they take it. If you get 10 minutes, they're already dried up. Okay, any more questions?
Well, we have a question about seeds. How long are the seeds viable?
The seeds viable, actually they are viable for several years. We have experience, for the we use the different spinosa, the rootstock seeds. After 3 or 4 years, they're still good. Definitely in the fridge, if you're in the fridge actually even in the freezer, they're fine. Because they're dry seeds in the freezer, they're good for several years.
So do you have particular ones you would recommend for our coastal areas? A lot of our members are living near the coast where they don't get the summer heat. And you said the inland areas all the varieties will do well, but the cooler areas, certain varieties are better. Are the varieties we can get a hold of these days? What do you recommend for the coast?
I think, for the cultivar, I can, this year, I'm a little proud of myself. I did a lot of picking myself, which got me really tired. But, you can see this, we'll probably share this picture again. Let's see. This one, The Maya Gaga, honey jar. I probably didn't have a honey jar picture. And as also the sugarcane. This is some of the early cultivar. The Russia 2 also early, not here, but the early picture. Like Maya Gaga, honey jar, cultivar number 1. This is all the early cultivar. The mid-season like KFC, Lee, Chico, and some of the late one like the A6, like this one, Sherwood, even the winter Jujube. These all the late cultivar. So for southern part, actually I think your area should have long enough growing season. Probably all of them you can grow. Probably later you have more. The later cultivar you have more potential, because for the early one you may they may mature too early and they're still too hot, which means they do not the sugar they're not that sweet. The later cultivar you can see nowadays all the cultivar are really sweet. Even the lead is really good quality now if they mature now. Some late the current year's growth.
Dave
What was-
Wilson has 8 cultivars for sale in their coming season.
I think probably Sherwood, this late one. GA6 is GA6 is a sweet cultivar, but it's really hard for them to produce for early. So they're not that precautious. Also, the tree is a little hard to manage. They do not branch out that much. The fruit definitely sweet. Sherwood is a late one. Sugarcane is the early one. I think most of them have honey jar, sugarcane. This is the early one. Sherwood GA6, that's the late one. Lee, Len, Lee is later than Len, but Lee can pick early because it's fresh eating. So these two are more like mid-season.
What was the name of the cultivar you said was your favorite one for fresh eating?
The winter Jujube, or called the Dongdao, or the Sandia, the same thing,
Could you type that into the chat at some point? That'll help me.
Let me check.
Yeah, Jeff, there's a question there somewhere about how can we purchase some of these unusual.
Yeah, this is a Sandia. Also, the Dongdao is the general name, Dongdao, or the Chinese winter Jujube, Yeah, Sandia is why I get it called Sandia, because that one is mislabeled. It's carry a different name. And then later I figure out it's just a strain of winter Jujube. So I call it Sandia. That is it's not we breed it, it's just during the mutation getting mislabeled. So later figure out it's a kind of Dongdao winter Jujube.
Is that available now to us, or is that something you have? But
if you want some sunwood possible, I really wish you guys just work on the nursery, just really buzz the nursery, let them to work with me, and then they can propagate them in big quantity.
Michelle, do you have any research money available to do some growing in at the rec center here in Southern California, and compare the difference in growing conditions between Southern California and New Mexico?
I'm a little lost, some kind of your voice a little soft, or maybe you're too far from your microphone.
Yeah, I think I can restate it. So John was talking about whether you had any research money available to extend your research into Southern California. We have close ties to the University of California South Coast Research and Extension Center, where they do trials of various things. They've done Dave Wilson, in fact, has done a high chill apple trial there, and there's other things like dragon fruit and cherimoya and things being studied there. That would be great to have something like Jujubes.
We tried the USDA, the SCI grant, or the multi-state project. I never have lucky enough to get big money. So that's why we tried it more than once, you know. Even, before I got to that land acre one, I really wished to try in California. I mean, we just not lucky enough. This is a minor crop. They, we couldn't get supported, We tried,
Well,
I
are there
tried
any-
to get include the, the riverside and also that one close to the Lucerne Valley and also the Fresno area. We tried, but it's just not lucky enough. We'll probably try again.
Are there any commercial growers in California?
Yeah, near the Lucerne Valley or the Lucerne Valley area, there are a lot of Korea, origin, growers there. They even call the high desert Jujube co-op or something. That is a group of Korean growers, And the Fresno, I think, is some, Asian growers there.
Okay.
I think Fresno area mainly for the fresh eating, and then the Lucerne Valley, they dry them and then they sell the dry fruit. Occasionally, you probably see it from Costco, something, the big leaf fruit, They dry it pretty well. I think they high enough in soluble solid. Their drying quality pretty good.
Okay, well, I think lastly, one of our members, I think all of our members probably reflect this. They want to know if there's a way to contact your husband next year to see if we can purchase some scionwood.
For scionwood, small quantity is possible. Yeah, to tell the truth, we're thinking to fish out. We're just getting, we do not have a big property, and then we couldn't afford the big equipment, and then labor. We're getting older, so we were a little tired of it.
You must have some grad students you can force into service for this to help us out.
Yeah, the station have a lot of land. The thing is that we are short of labor, and then no one really want to learn to graft. I tell you the truth. All my, the cultivar trial, I probably every single tree all by myself.
Well, I think you would have got a lot of volunteers if you had been doing your trials here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish, just the USDA never support us, so do not have enough money to do that.
Yeah. I remember young Fei with his young Mai trials and tribulations, trying to get young Mai started here. That was something else as well.
Well, if we don't have any other questions, I don't see anything offhand. Charlie put in the variety name for the other variety for Sandia. So Dongzhao and Winter Jujube or Jujube.
Yeah, the Sandia is similar. It's just the one kind of, we also we are doing the genotyping. Yeah, I haven't tell you guys my plan. We're doing that because the cultivar is so randomly named. So we're doing the genotyping now to see which one to cluster together. I mean, they may have already minor difference. So it seems a lot of the lead group have like more than 10. The long group, the same thing. They're all grouped together. They may have a minor difference, but in general, they're similar. Like the Banya Gaga and another one, they're just also grouped together, which means that year, I think my collection plus Cliff England collection, we group them to around 20 groups. So probably soon I'll just upload it to that website again, and then you guys at least know, which one are similar. Even they have a different fancy name, you can see some nursery, they, like a Black Sea, Cocoa, whatever, who knows what they're reading, but who they're similar with,
Yeah.
So Dr. Yao,
like the
when
Black
you
Sea and the Russian Tour are probably identical.
Dr. Yao, when you genotype, are you using a molecular techniques? And
Yeah.
do you have a lab for that? I asked
I didn't
because
have lab, but I collaborate with a USD guy at Brownsville. Because actually, now because I did some work and people started to know me, and some of them they started to contact me. Like that's the one of them is a Chinese scientist at USDA Birdsville. He do the genotyping for different kind of crops, and then he worked with another Chinese visiting scholar. They already get the primer there. So he contacted me. So I sent them all my sample to him. So we did once before the COVID. And then this year in August, we did another big batch. Hopefully we can, get more results and then upload the results to that website. And also we started recently doing they call it a fancy name called metabolomics. You can have the profile, like in the fruit, you can have all the profile, different components there. So you can compare different cultivar, different location, which one affected. It's really fancy thing. And they just run one sample, they can get it all come out, several hundred, different compounds there. Even for, later for, pharmaceutical or house product, there are a lot of potential there. I started to branch out, the Jujube cultivar trial is really the basic. I'm tired of the harvesting, to tell you the truth. I'm imagining the harvest just too much. At the beginning they have 4 kilos, now they have like a 40 kilos.
Well, Jane has been patiently waiting to get in here with a question. Jane, go ahead.
I just wanted to know, are these all non-patented or patents expired, or is that even a factor? Because you're encouraging us to try grafting, but that's an issue with some other fruits.
It's not really patented. I do have a trade name. I have a trademark for it, but I wish I can work with the nursery and then get it more available for growers. The problem is I haven't now the nursery is more like a seller's market. They propagate whatever, they can sell them all. So they have no interest for new cultivars. I know the growers demand more variety, more selections.
When we have our science exchanges and the grafting demonstrations, I belong to the West LA and the LA chapters. We're very careful to make sure that we don't let people bring in patented things, so that's why I was asking, because people, anyway, we don't want to be part of the problem, but it's not an issue. It's not an issue with Jujubes. Okay.
Well, that's good to know. All right, is that it for everybody? I don't see any hands. All right, thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation, and we have your slides to download. It's the links in the chat, and we can put it up on the website. If you didn't download the chat in time, or you're working on a phone or something.
Yeah, because all the information is in that website. Because all the reference publication all have linked to that website.
Yeah,
so which make it easier.
Yeah, it's an excellent website, and there's several articles in there I recommend people read about grafting, about pruning, and just in general the flowering habits. All that stuff is in there, and easy to understand. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, see everybody. Next month we get to meet in person if all holds, if COVID holds back.
And Sunday we have the tour, or Saturday, which day is
Sunday. Sunday. Yeah. No fake news, John.
Okay.
All right.
Bye, everyone.